Hey guys, we're back with episode 2 of Powerplay.
Actually, it's episode 3.
I hope you got to check out last week's episode where we interviewed Ayun. If you haven't already, you can check the link below. For today, we're going to be doing something a bit different. I'm going to be addressing one of the most frequently asked questions that I get as a coach, which is, how do I get better at futsal? I know it's a very general question, but what I think is a bit more applicable is the question of how do you break past that wall, right? Because I believe that futsal players tend to hit a wall, and it's not just futsal players, it's any athlete in any sport, right? They will come to a certain point where they hit a wall which they feel they cannot break past. So this week, what we're going to be doing is addressing this issue, and I'll give you my feedback and thoughts as to how to overcome this. So initially, when I first started coaching, I found that I didn't really have the expertise to answer this question properly, because I found that not one answer fit all the players that I was coaching. But over time, I managed to be able to, gather all the knowledge and experience over the years, and I've put together a couple of pointers that I think would help players maybe break past this point. Okay, so the first thing that you have to know is the concept of plateau, right? So this happens and is very normal in any training regime. For those of you who hit the gym, this is also commonly known as beginner gains. So what this means is that at the start, when you first start training and doing drills, your growth in the sport is exponential. And then at a certain point in time, you hit a wall where you believe that, your results are not as good as you wished it to be, or you feel like a certain stagnation in your progress. Okay, so how do you get out of this plateau? The answer to this is training and game experience. So how many hours do you put into training, and is the training specific? Right? So for example, if you're training once or twice a week, do you think that that's enough? I don't think so. Right? So what you need to be doing, based on even last week when I interviewed Ayun, he mentioned that last time he used to be training maybe 2 to 3 times even a day. Yes, of course, he's a professional player, and maybe you are not in that same position. But if you actually really want to improve, I'm sure you could squeeze in at least 1 or 2 more training sessions on your own. So the next thing is to answer the question of how are you training, right? Is your training specific? So when you join team trainings, what the coach should be focused on is the team. But if you come into a team training and the coach needs to correct your individual weaknesses, for example, like if you can't pass with your weak foot and you only stop the ball with your weak foot, these are the things that the coach cannot be correcting at every single session during a team training. So you need to be working on your weaknesses on your own and come to your team trainings to be able to work on team chemistry, tactical, and so on. Okay, so I'll show you a snippet of what we did yesterday in training and the reason as to why I have this point.
Now, very simple. Why do you think I did this? Because the fundamentals of the game, the basics of the game needs to be solid. A lot of you can do what you are doing, but only with one foot. Right? But in the game, the opponent, all it takes is if he only knows that you use your dominant foot, you are dead, because then he forces you to your weak side and then you cannot play. Right? But this training cannot be something I be doing in the court every week. This will be stuff you do on your own. Because why? This is individual training. If you want me to teach you stuff that is higher level than this, come here with already having done that during the past week. Minimum at least once or twice a week. If next week the level of passing is the same, what can I conclude? That means you didn't practice lah. Right? If you all want to waste your own time, because I don't think you need my expertise to tell you how to pass. Right? If you want to waste your own time, it's up to you. But my suggestion is at least put in once a week your own passing, so that we don't have to waste time on this. We can go and do harder drills.
Okay, so what you need to do next is to learn to embrace being uncomfortable. So what you need to understand is that every player has strengths and weaknesses. But if you only focus on doing what you're good at in training, it becomes very predictable. So for example, if you can only go to your left, right? And then in training, you keep doing that again and again and again and again. In a match, right, your opponents are going to be able to see that you have certain habits and certain patterns of playing. So if they know that you only go to your left, then what will they do? They'll shut your left down and force you to your right. And then if that happens in a game, you end up not being able to be fully utilized. Yes, I understand that most of the time you do what you're good at because you want to impress your coach and you want to be considered for games and leagues. But to further progress, what you need to be able to do is practice what you're weak at in training and slowly implement it in game situations. And once you do this, then you become a bit unpredictable. And of course, in that situation, you'll be able to be picked for any games or leagues and so forth. Okay, so the next thing is one of the most common problems that I see players make, which is the memorization of plays. Let me give you an example, the parallel pass. So this is one of the most brilliant movements that I think almost every team uses, but at the same time, you see it often fail, right? So let me just use a tactical board so that you can visualize what I'm trying to say. Okay, so this is an example of a parallel pass. This player brings the ball in, plays it across and runs down the line. This player then plays this parallel pass for this player to attack towards goal, or this player will do the finishing for far post, right? So in training ground, of course, you've done this 1,000 times, but in game situation, there's a lot of variables that have to be assessed on the fly. For example, if you look at the weight of the pass, right? So when you play this pass and you run down this line, this weight of the pass has to be perfect, because if it's too far, the goalkeeper comes out to sweep it, or if it's too near, this player can't attack the ball and is forced to turn and play it back. So when it comes to the memorization of the play, more often than not, the players don't even see where this player is and attempts to make the run. So you must be able to improvise, right? So if he plays it here, you have to wait for this player to come in. Once a line of pass is created, then you make the run, play it down the line, and then this player goes for a finish. So other than the weight of the pass, it comes down to also the space behind the defender, and also whether there is a line of pass introduced. So it's important to understand that it's not just about memorizing where you have to move, but improvising based on where the defenders are standing and where the goalkeeper is standing.
Seberang sana, Neto menanti di sebelah kanan. Satu lob yang baik untuk mendapatkan Farid. Hanya perlu melakukan satu larian pantas. Buka laluan sudah dilakukan oleh Yazid.
Okay, so the next thing that I want to highlight is trusting the process. I'm sure a lot of you have heard this term being used by coaches. Some of you have used it as Instagram captions, myself included. But what this really means is just you need to be aware of your own ability and how far you've come, right? So I see a lot of players come in at, let's say, a level 2 out of 10, right? And they partake and participate in training drills. They train with you over a period of time and they feel that they've progressed. But yes, they have progressed, but that doesn't mean you're a 9 out of 10. It could mean that you progress from a 2 to a 3 or a 3 to a 4, right? So what you need to understand is that you need to appreciate how far you've come. And what this means is that, for example, if you couldn't stop a ball before with your weak foot and now that you can, or you couldn't pass a ball with your weak foot now that you can, that's still progress, right? So these things take time. It's not something that happens overnight. There are some players who take months, right, to be able to progress. There are some players who take years, but it's just whether you truly trust the process and want to follow it, or if you want to give up, then don't complain. So these are the few things that I believe that actually brings meaning into trusting the process. So the next one is a very fun one, which I think is the point of trusting your coach, right? So what this means is to leave your ego at the door. So what you need to understand from a coach's perspective is, of course, no coach wants to lose because it really looks bad on the coach, right? When a team wins, more often than not, the win is attributed not to the coach but to the team. But when the team loses, it's the coach's fault. So indirectly, the coach never wins, right? But so when you understand this, you truly be able to see that the coach won't have any personal vendetta against you, and he's not biased towards certain players. Maybe he has a certain style of play that you might not fit. So stop thinking that, everything is, the coach against you, the world against you. All this kind of stuff needs to be thrown out the door. If you are a good player and you contribute to the team, of course the coach will use you, right? If he doesn't use you in 1 or 2 or 3 games, you can have a conversation with the coach, and maybe then you'll be able to see how you can make your way back into the team. But if you go in with the thought process of, I think the coach doesn't like me, or I think the coach doesn't want to play me because of this. So if your mentality is such, you're not going to do yourself any favors, because throwing tantrums is one of the worst things for a coach to handle, because all he should be focused on is actually the game, right? So I've seen a lot of players play this victim card and blame everyone but themselves. But the question you need to ask yourself is, if you were really that good, would the coach bench you? So of course, all of this is a lot of work, and it isn't for everyone, but you could tweak all of these strategies to fit the level that you want to play at. However, if your goal is to play at a higher level, then the amount of work that you put in has to follow suit, right? So the one thing that I wish you could take back from this is that if you're not willing to put in the work, then don't complain about the results, right? So players need to understand this. It'll help you, it'll help your team, and it'll help your coaches also. Okay, so I hope all of these pieces of information have been useful and beneficial towards you, and I hope you can apply this in your teams and in your own individual trainings. But if you have any questions for us, please shoot them our way and we'll do our best to get back to you, right? And before I go, please follow and subscribe for anything and everything futsal.